Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Ruth, did I see you here? She may have popped out. I guess we'll give it another couple minutes. Maybe more people will join. Oh, there's Ruth. Hi, Ruth. Ruth, can you hear us?
Yes, but I have the distinct impression you can't hear me.
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the new platform has definitely been a bit of a learning curve.
So is it really just the three of us?
Looks like it so far.
Interesting. Well, it may just be taking everybody a long time to figure out what they want to do.
It's possible.
But in any case, Harrison, we have some questions. You know, which topic are you interested in? Working on the text of our 7 through 9 or brainstorming how to get these things adopted?
Probably more on, well, either one, I suppose. So, I mean, a little bit about my background. So I'm actually working on a research project where we are trying to implement we have an opportunity to basically have some test cases where we're publishing data sets, and we're starting from scratch in terms of figuring out what metadata to use. It's interdisciplinary research in environmental health sciences. I'm a programmer and a data librarian. I also have a research assistant who's a computer science graduate. So we have some resources to work with. And we're really just trying to develop workflows that make sense to the scientists, or that we can train the scientists. And so when I saw that this group had something to do with that there would be some discussion of tools, that's one interest of mine. So what sort of tools can be implemented specifically for metadata creation or for creating forms and things like that? I have some idea. I mean, I think we're starting with scienceonschema.org as sort of a generic container for our metadata. So basically, I'm looking for ways that I can contribute to this group, but also to solve the immediate problems that I'm working on. So I see the value of community developed standards. I don't want to do it on my own. Does that provide some context to?
It does.
So I'm happy to write. I'm happy to brainstorm.
Okay. I'm not sure that we have, beyond the scienceandschema.org tools that you probably already know about, I'm not sure we have additional tools to recommend in our document, but we certainly can take a look at that. But you mentioned medical, and so I was wondering if you'd actually also looked at all at the bioschemas.org.
No. Yeah, this isn't actually medical. I mean, we have data that's collected from environmental samples. It can be groundwater, seawater, water, etc. And then we also have work that goes on in laboratories, so genomics type work, and we're trying to promote interoperability and so we have scientists working in very different domains, trying to utilize each other's data, and then we're contributing to a bigger pool of data about the particular in this case, and contaminants in the environment that we're studying. So we have to solve internal problems as well as external. But the funder wants us to work on both.
Right. Well, the genomics work definitely, bioschemas has a little bit of help for you there. I think, because they've got some sections on genomic kinds of things.
Cool. I will check that.
But I suggest we just go look at the recommendation text and start there. Oh, and we have had a couple other people join. Hannah and Megan, welcome. Are you here? Says they joined, but I'm not sure they're really here, or at least they're not speaking.
I feel like it doesn't tell you if people leave, so.
Yeah, who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, can you go? Well, actually, we have several other people here. We have Marvin Gackle, Hannah Foley, Megan Underwood. Are any of you literally here? If so, we'd like to hear from you, since this is a feedback session. But in the meantime, please click on the recommendation link and scroll down to the recommendations 7, 8, and 9.
Okay. Sorry, I had to switch computers because my headphones died, and all my links, I have to reopen them. But I do have them in a document. So
okay.
I can try and share my screen just to make sure we're all on the same page. If you guys want,
would help.
That would be lovely, Chantel.
Let's see if it works.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, perfect.
Great.
Excellent. Yep. Yeah, we'll do it that way.
Perfect.
Right. So I do note that we do have a couple of tools for creating markup or metadata. So have you looked at either of those?
So yeah, I mean, I've looked at some, but what we're doing is taking a slightly different approach. And rather than, I mean, we may end up, I've looked at Cedar, which, there's a lot of, I don't know if that's included in this set, but we would like to develop R packages and Python modules that provide kind of building blocks so that coders, because we always figure there's going to be some programming involved, but it seems that we should leverage these communities of software development in the R package world, in the Python module world, and provide developers tools that could basically crank out metadata in various formats based on data that's provided through a user interface of some sort or through a spreadsheet. So that's kind of the approach we're going, rather than building a more sort of comprehensive software package. We're assuming that we're going to err on the side of flexibility as opposed to user friendliness. Anyway, that's sort of where I'm coming from with tools.
Okay. So you'd be interested in, say, for example, a package, a Python of modules.
Package or module. Yeah, either one. We'll probably try to do proof of concepts in both languages. And that allows a developer to build, if your lab or your repository needs a full-blown system, you can leverage these tools to say build a user interface using, one of many tools that would allow you to build either a web interface or something like that in Python or R or whatever, or even in Excel for that matter. So we want to have this core set of tools that kind of maps input data to some sort of specified metadata schema. I guess that would be, and maybe implement crosswalks, et cetera. I mean, we're not trying to build anything too robust. We would like to build sort of the foundation for these packages that developers could then either fork or contribute to.
Okay. All right. Any other comments on this part of the document? And there are some validators that exist. Were you planning on using any of these?
Yeah, to the extent that validators exist, we would want to use. We would start with whatever's been developed by the community, for instance. And I do see that there are Python modules for working with schema.org. I don't know exactly.
Where are you looking?
I just Googled schema.org in Python, and so I
Oh.
I see PyPy is the sort of our repository for Python modules, and I can't really tell like how active the development is from this, but it's out there.
I suspect it's probably pretty active because there's a lot of work happening in this area at this point.
Yeah, definitely. I'm looking at their GitHub repo right now, and it's people are contributing currently, and it's been around for a while. I'll paste this in the chat. So that's, I mean, I guess one of the things that I would like, where I'm probably most qualified to contribute would be around these sort of existing tools that development tools, either in Python or R, the popular open source languages that kind of are predominant in scientific practice these days. Identifying what's available and maybe where the gaps are. I mean, is that consistent with what we're trying to accomplish here?
Well,
Or are we looking for something that is more, like rather than something that suggests a tool, something, an actual tool that someone could grab off the shelf and do this stuff with?
Well, no, actually, I think the point you're making, which is that tooling is not just involving, off the shelf, fill out as form kind of thing, but also support for programmers in doing that kind of work. So I personally think your comment's really good because I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, because I mean, I've been around, in the data library and data archive space. I've been working in this area for, actually for more than 20 years, but there were some gaps where I worked on other things. But it does seem that when people build tools, like let's say you build a Windows tool or something that's either operating system dependent or you develop in Java, or there are all these problems that usually stand in the way of adoption. So if you don't have some sort of monolithic team behind you, or you're not part of it, it's really hard to sustain those. But then there are so many kind of projects that start out with good intentions and then the funding runs out. But where we have seen success is in the open source world programming language, where we have these organic communities that sort of organically grow, and there's like an infrastructure for sharing your code. Like in the R world, there's very prescribed ways of documenting and getting it accepted into the CRAN repository, and I mean that just it grows and it seems to work. But with the downside being, it works if you're an R programmer, but it's sometimes the motivation for someone to pick up learning the language because they find a great tool. So that's why I sort of lean in the direction of these toolkits for programmers, but with the acknowledgement that more and more scientists are becoming programmers, in order to get their work done. More and more grad students are learning to program in Python and R because that's sort of the language that's used to do what they do. Anyway, I'm sure you get the point of
Yes.
where I'm coming from. That said,
Yes.
I don't want to say categorically dismiss any tool that's been developed out there that doesn't fit those criteria that I described, because there could be great ones that could be built upon where there is significant development. So, anyway.
Right.
So
For example, the Science on Schema.org Chrome plugin and the Gleaner.
Mm-hmm.
And I think even geocodes have been adopted by the ESIP community, the Federation Earth Science Information Partners.
Yeah.
And so they should be at least moderately active.
Right.
And open source.
Mm-hmm.
I know they're open source, but I think they're also pretty active, at least at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's recommendation 7, utilizing tools.
Yep.
Okay, recommendation 8.
Document.
Any comments?
If Chantel wants to talk, I don't want to comment.
Actually, you have 2 note takers and one of you. Because we can't get anybody else to actually talk.
So let's see, documenting the process.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be the process of
actually whatever you're doing to create your schema.org.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of critical. Yeah, but what is implied by documentation? So I think one of the things I think about, it's you have the documentation on like the user instructions, how to use it, but there also has to be documentation about the various that helps. So the documentation of using it to accomplish the metadata creation or metadata publishing tasks that you're trying to do. But if you're talking about tools, there's also the documentation of, how do you get the tool to work? Like, what are the dependencies? What are the problems? What are the differences when you try to do it on a Mac as opposed to Windows? So there are these, anytime you start talking about tools, for things to be successful, you really have to have comprehensive documentation that anticipates that you're going to have users who, so I would say we really want to differentiate, but those 2 different types of documentation, because one needs to be developed by programmers, and then the other is probably going to be developed by domain experts. Do you know what I'm saying there? So
yes, actually, believe it or not,
technical work. Yeah, if you have a technical workflow, there are parts of the technical workflow, and I'm thinking about my own experience in this research project where I have very little domain knowledge, but I understand metadata and data repositories and data sharing standards and things like that, and et cetera. And so you really have to document both parts. So you have to develop adequate, and like I say, it's probably going to, if I had to just sort of simplify the explanation, would be, how do you document the contributions of the domain experts who understand the challenges associated with creating the metadata, as well as how do you capture the expertise of the developers who built or are in the process of building the tool. How do you capture sort of the technical needs of the software, and then potentially how do you want a documentation of how do you communicate with the developers or maintainers of the software when you find problems, et cetera. So if you're going to, once you get into the realm of tool building, for it to be a success, you really have to have fairly seamless ways of communication between both user groups. Right?
Okay.
So that's where my mind goes in documenting the process. We can't just sort of abstract out and say, here's a tool, and we've documented how to use the tool to create your metadata, job done. You also have to ensure that you're using tools that where you can kind of solve problems with the tool when it comes to installation or bugs or improve or how to get improvements implemented, et cetera.
Okay. I think that's all good feedback. I note
Yeah,
that
I mean, hopefully not going off into the weeds, but I'm sort of stream of consciousness, but those are the things that I think about as someone who is charged with helping to operationalize this within an interdisciplinary research team.
Yep. No, that's quite fine. I do note that we have a Volker Hartman who just joined the room. Volker, would you like to speak up, and do you have any comments? We're working now on recommendation 8, but I'd welcome any comments you had on recommendation 7 as well, if you'd care to speak up. Oh, broken microphone. Okay. Well, you could just add notes to the document. I believe that you have the rights to, comment and that sort of thing. In the meantime, perhaps we should move to recommendation 9 because we don't have that many minutes left.
Yep, move on.
Okay, identify appropriate communities before creating your own.
Yep.
So I'll give you a couple minutes to read this section. So Volker, if you need a link or anything like that, just let us know and we can help you out. Oh, they're saying they want us to go back to the main room.
Yes, please. It's time now to go to the report back. Thank you.
Yeah, I have no disagreement with any of this.
Okay, I guess we'll go back to the main room now if I can figure out how.
I think there's the link right underneath Breakout C.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
back to WG.
Mhm.
Okay, well, see.